What's up everybody, Subaru fan here for another weekly update. So again, I'm going to forego the car portion because the Mustangs have been sitting in the garage all week because I had an awesome ATS-V as a press car, and now I have a Q50 Infinity RS 400, Red Sport 400. So the Mustang isn't getting out of the garage, sadly, but that's okay because there's lots of news to go over this week here. The LA Auto Show has been going on, and there's a ton of news stories. So I'm going to go through them as quickly as possible here and hit on all the important stuff. The first and the most important thing that so many of you have been asking about for many months now is news about the new Civic Si. It's finally been unveiled in a very near to production concept form. Honda's calling this a concept, but this is a 2017 model, so that means it's got to be coming very soon for it to not be a 2018 model car. So they just said sometime next year though, but so this is the new Civic Si here, and some people love it or hate it. It just depends on your personal preferences. The front lip and the rear spoiler are optional kind of accessories, so you don't have to get those, but I actually really like the way it looks. The front bumper and stuff does look very similar to the Type R, just toned down a little bit. I really like the center exhaust there in the back. It looks really good. And so the looks and stuff to me all look pretty good. Interior looks nice. The thing though, they didn't put a detuned version of the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine in this. It has the same 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder that's in the standard Civic that does like 178 horsepower or so. They didn't give horsepower numbers for this, but they are claiming it's going to be the fastest, best handling Si ever offered. So that means it's going to have more than 205 horsepower that the outgoing old Si has, and it's not going to obviously be more than the previous gen Type R at 300 some. So I mean, from a 1.5-liter turbo engine, honestly, I'd be surprised if we saw more than 210, 220 horsepower tops, I think, sadly. I mean, that's still competitive. The new GTI is going to have 220 horsepower in base trim, and then 240, I think, for the, faster trim. And so yeah, I mean, anyone that's disappointed in this, they can go look at a WRX with 265 horsepower, Golf R 290, or you can just go for the Type R and wait for that with over 300 horsepower. So but it would be nice to have a little bit of a larger engine. The good news is though, they're keeping it with a 6-speed manual transmission only. It's going to be available in coupe and also in sedan, not in hatchback. The reason for that is that the Type R is going to be only hatchback because they build the hatchbacks over in the UK, and they build the Type R in the UK, but the North American market is actually where they build the normal Civic coupe and sedan. So the Si is going to probably be just for the States and only be in coupe and sedan form for that reason. That way they don't have to ship Si components over to the UK, and likewise, it just would be a huge logistics nightmare, I guess, for them. So coupe and sedan, that's it. But yeah, so I mean, so 6-speed manual. It's going to have a limited slip diff. It's going to have active steering and dampers, and you can get high performance tires as an option as well. So overall, it should be very exciting. We'll have to wait and hear, the final horsepower numbers here for this thing before we, cast judgment on it. But still very exciting nonetheless. One car we do have horsepower numbers for, though, is Nissan. This past week unveiled the 2017 Nissan Sentra NISMO that's going to be on sale early next year. And so interesting thing here, again, probably a little underpowered for what everyone was hoping from a NISMO version of the Sentra. It has the same exact engine and the same exact horsepower as the SR Turbo model that was just revealed. So basically the NISMO, in a nutshell, what it's going to add to the Sentra over the SR Turbo is just the more aggressive exterior and interior, styling, and then it also will have an active, unique NISMO suspension that's obviously a lot sportier than the standard SR Turbo suspension. But to give you a little more detail here, so it's going to have the same 1.6-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder, 188 horsepower, 177 pound-feet of torque. And for those that are curious, that's barely any more powerful than the old Sentra SER from over 10 years ago. They put about the same horsepower at that point too. And back then, they also weighed a lot less, I think. So I'm trying to stay optimistic about this thing here, but just I feel like it'd be so easy, especially with a turbo. Just tweak it a little bit, give it a little more power, and make it a little bit different from the standard SR Turbo. But it is what it is. You can get it with a 6-speed manual. Thankfully, you can also get the CVT if you would like. But yeah, it's just a more aggressive styling there on the outside. They also lowered the ride height by 0.4 inches, and 18-inch wheels are standard. And the brakes have also been beefed up, but they also give you beefed up up brakes on the SR Turbo. So they're the same brakes you get on the SR Turbo, so that's not even any different there. But they say that they did tune the electric power steering system to be more NISMO-like, whatever that means, but obviously more sporty, I would assume. And so yes, and it's got a cool steering wheel there, a nice red tachometer and stuff. And yeah, they're saying that the pricing should probably be somewhere under $25,000, roughly maybe $3,000 or so more than the standard SR Turbo. So that is the Sentra NISMO. Should be a very good competitor here to the Civic Si, when they're both going to be, roughly the same kind of horsepower here. And yeah, so it looks like we're going to be struggling to, get too much over 200 horsepower here out of these affordable little compact sedans still. And a company that gives people what they want with some crazy stuff is Chevy. They just unveiled the Colorado ZR2, which looks nearly identical to the concept they revealed back in 2014, which big thumbs up there for Chevy for, sticking to that and making it extreme. I mean, it's so extreme that even the bed-mounted spare tire that you see here on this concept is going to be available as an option. You can actually get that from the factory. The suspension is lifted 2 inches. The track is 3.5 inches wider, front and back, and it has 31-inch off-road tires that are standard. Double thumbs up. This is awesome. I'm not even into trucks really, but this just sounds really exciting. It also is going to have the first truck application of these Multimatic DSS V shocks, which are the same ones used in the Camaro Z28, and they're in legit like 24 hours of Le Mans race cars and stuff. So that stands for Dynamic Suspension Spool Valve, and it's supposed to, I guess make it softened up so that you can, go over big jumps and stuff very well, while also keeping it civil around town on smoother surfaces. So it's going to also have front and rear electronic locking differentials. It's going to have an off-road mode, which recalibrates traction control, ABS, and throttle response for driving in mud and dirt. And as far as the powertrains, it's going to have the same engine choices as the standard Colorado. So you'll either get the 308 horsepower V6, or you can actually do the Duramax diesel with this as well. And both engines are great. I've reviewed both in the GMC version, the Canyon, and also here in the Colorado. And both are great little trucks. And but yeah, so very, very exciting to see that. We don't have any word on pricing yet, but I mean, even the Trail Boss version of the Colorado was pretty pricey, so I'm sure this will be even more so, considering this has a lot of legit awesome expensive equipment on it here. So probably won't be cheap, but should be very, very awesome. So great to see that. And Lamborghini unveiled a new model here in LA, and what it is the convertible version of the rear-wheel drive, slightly slower version of the Huracan here, which is going to be called the LP580-2 Spyder, and looks very good. It has the same front and rear bumper changes that the rear-wheel drive models get there. That's a little bit different than the all-wheel drive models, and otherwise it's the same as all the all-wheel drive convertible versions. 5.2 liter V10, 572 horsepower, 389 pound-feet of torque, or 98 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 though is slightly slower here for the rear-wheel drive convertible, so it's going to be doing it in 3.6 seconds, which is about 0.2 slower. But it's a pretty light car. The dry weight is 3,320 pounds, which is about 258 pounds heavier than the coupe rear-wheel drive version, but it's about 330 pounds lighter than the all-wheel drive Huracan Spyder. So, nice in the middle there. And as far as pricing and all that kind of stuff goes, it's obviously going to be more expensive than the rear-wheel drive coupe, but less expensive than the all-wheel drive convertible. So, and it looks good, pretty much exactly what we expected. Another Italian car that's, to me, is even more exciting is Alfa Romeo unveiled the Stelvio, which is their new crossover type thing, but it doesn't really look that much like a crossover, and that's a good thing, because it's really just a slightly taller, slightly more stretched out wagon kind of looking version of the Giulia. And and we were expecting that they were going to be coming out with the Stelvio, but I was personally not expecting a quadrifoglio model, which is what this, it's going to start off, going to have the Stelvio and the Stelvio TI, which have the, 2 liter 4-cylinder that makes 280 horsepower and 306 pound-feet of torque. All the cars are going to have all-wheel drive, which is another big difference I'll get to in a second. But yes, with the quadrifoglio model, it's going to have 505 horsepower, 443 pound-feet of torque, same as the Giulia version, and this is it's only 0.1 seconds slower 0 to 60 than the Giulia, and so this one does 3.9 seconds here for the Stelvio, and it's going to be really, really impressive. 8-speed automatic transmission. It's going to have the all-wheel drive system, because that's one thing about the Giulia Quadrifoglio is it doesn't have all-wheel drive. It's rear-wheel drive, and for those in snowy climates, if you want this kind of power, this would be the perfect solution. And yeah, so it has a mechanic limited slip rear differential as an option. You can get with a Quadrifoglio, you get the torque vectoring rear differential as well. But I mean, it's got a near 50-50 weight distribution front and rear. And the suspension's independent, and then the Quadrifoglio version gets a sporty or adaptive version as well. And this thing just is really exciting and awesome looking to me. I love the interior, the exterior. Personally, I think this is my new favorite SUV. I love it that much. The Macan was my current favorite. I'm not a huge SUV person, but I really like the Macan. But this, I think, dethrones the Macan and should be actually a better value than the Macan, hopefully. Because that's the thing, is if you look at this, the Stelvio's, I guess, more expensive sibling, the Maserati Levante, I mean, they're completely different SUVs. And the fast version of the Levante starts at $83,000. Now, it's not as fast as the Alfa, but it's also considered more upmarket, Maserati being higher than Alfa Romeo in the food chain. So I'm hoping that this version, even the Quadrifoglio Stelvio here, is less than, $80,000 or so. Because we know that the Giulia Quadrifoglio is probably going to be somewhere around $70,000. So maybe $75,000 for one of these. Sounds pretty reasonable, and man, I love the way that thing looks. Like I said, oh man, that's like the first SUV that I think I've really been smitten by since the Macan, and yeah, so very impressive there. Another SUV that really is not too much of a surprise is Subaru unveiled the viziv 7, which is their new large full-size SUV that seats 7 people, as you might have guessed, and they wanted to bring one of these back, as of course all Americans are obsessed with huge crossovers again, and so since the Tribeca wasn't a great seller, they wanted to do something completely new and different, and so this is what we're looking at here. And so it's a big SUV, though. It's actually almost an inch longer than a Chevy Tahoe. That's how big it is. So yeah, should make it nice and spacious. And honestly, we know they're going to be probably rushing something like this to market as quickly as they possibly can. So what you're looking at is a concept, but if you get rid of the futuristic headlights, fog lights, little skinny side mirrors, and the more I guess put more production style stuff in those spaces, I think that you're looking at basically what will be the production version. And so looks very good, though. I love especially the way they, I know a lot of car companies these days are doing those long tail lights across the entire back end of the car, but I love the way they all look, and especially the Subaru version here looks very, very good to me. And overall, should be a very exciting thing and should sell well for Subaru, and hopefully give them some more money to build us some BRZ STIs or more impressive WRXs and WRX STIs. So yeah, very cool to see that. Another crazy SUV was Jaguar has just unveiled the I-Pace, which is a new all-electric SUV that they're developing here, and they're going to be releasing it in 2018. So within 2 years, this thing is going to be on sale. And of course, this is a concept, so it looks a little crazier than what a production version probably will, but shouldn't be too far off, honestly. Jaguar's been pretty good about building stuff that looks pretty close to their concepts. And so, yeah, it's just, very impressive all electric. So it kind of has reimagined, I guess, how a car can be shaped and how a crossover can be shaped when you don't have to worry about an engine up front there. And it's going to be still perform like a Jaguar is what they're promising. 0 to 60 time is going to be around 4 seconds. It's going to have 516 pound-feet of torque and about 400 horsepower with these electric motors. And it's going to have good range too. 220 miles of range from its 90 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. It'll take about 2 hours to charge on a 50 kilowatt fast charging station and get about 80% charging in 90 minutes or so. So, and Jaguar says that for commuters who drive about 30 miles a day, it would only need charging about once per week. So, very impressive there. I really like the way it looks. I think that's another very nice looking SUV and a great alternative to a Model X or something like that. Aston Martin this past week unveiled the Vanquish S, which is of course based on the current generation Vanquish here that's just pumped up and kind of given a final hurrah, like like Aston Martin likes to do here, before, you know, a new Vanquish comes out probably in a year or two based on the DB11. This is, of course, still based on the old original, you know, Vanquish, which goes back to the DB9. But, you know, it's got a meaner front bumper there and a more racy rear end as well. And it's got a lot more exposed carbon fiber and all that kind of stuff. It's got quad exhaust pipes in the back too, which also are kind of different from the old other Vanquishes and look very good. It's got 12 additional horsepower out of its good old naturally aspirated 6-liter V12, so it has a grand total of 580 horsepower now. They also have revised the 8-speed Touchtronic 3 automatic transmission so that it's a little faster to shift and also a little smoother, so very nice to see that. And they've, you know, obviously gone over the interior and improved little bits and pieces here and there and given some new options. And so yes, they're going to be starting at $294,950 for the coupe and $312,950 for the convertible Volante version. And they'll start delivering them in December. So basically you can buy one right now if you want. Another high-end vehicle that just was unveiled at LA was the Mercedes-Maybach 2017 S650 Cabriolet. So this is the Maybach version of the standard S650, and there's not a whole lot to differentiate it. I mean, they have a lot of different little tweaks here and there, you know, completely different front bumper, rear bumpers, to kind of, you know, and obviously those wheels, which are very in your face, and of course some nicer interior treatment there to go along with it. But it's the same twin-turbo V12 engine, makes the same horsepower as the standard S650. And so they're just, you know, they're limiting them so that it's an exclusive thing as well here for the Maybachs. There's going to be 300 built, 75 are coming to the United States, and they haven't announced the price, but I'm sure they're either already all spoken for, or, you know, it's one of those things, if you have to ask, you probably can't afford it, because it's a Maybach after all. So, and it also comes with its own luggage, by the way, in case that's a selling point for anyone. But, you know, it looks good, but honestly, I mean, why bother over a standard S650 unless you just have to have that exclusivity? There's nothing wrong with an S650 on its own. And for a much more reasonable little car that was unveiled at LA, Ford unveiled the 2018 EcoSport, or EcoSport is kind of what they, I think, prefer for it to be called. And so it's a tiny little compact or subcompact SUV that is actually based on the Fiesta underpinnings, although it obviously looks a lot different than a Fiesta, and, you know, has a much nicer interior and things like that than the Fiestas do. And apparently this is the best-selling vehicle for Ford outside of the United States. The EcoSports here have been around for many years already in other markets, but we're just finally getting it here since we're obsessed with SUVs all of a sudden. And so I'm sure it'll sell very, very well here. And it has some nice options you can get on it. You know, you can get you know, Sync 3 with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. This is also the first vehicle they've officially announced that comes with these new B&O Play systems by Harman Kardon. That you know, Ford had a recent partnership a few months ago back where they announced this partnership to have you know, these B&O Play systems in their cars. And so it's going to be an optional system you can get here in the EcoSport. It's a 10-speaker, 675-watt system. I'm sure you'll be able to expect some kind of high-end system in the upcoming 2018 Mustang as well, whenever that gets a redo. But anyway, back to the EcoSport here. The interesting thing are the powertrains. So it's available with either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. If you get front-wheel drive, you have to get the 1-liter 3-cylinder EcoBoost engine, which is the same one in the Focus 1-liter that I just reviewed a few weeks ago. And so that motor is not the most powerful, even in the Focus and the Fiesta. So putting it in a heavier, larger EcoSport here, that may not be very desirable. Now, if you do get the 4-wheel drive version, that comes with a standard naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder. They haven't announced horsepower numbers. Basically, it should be the same engine you get in a standard Ford Focus, which again, not a lot of power, but this is a smaller vehicle, so I think that should be fine. But you know, those with the front-wheel drive version, those are going to be not quick cars. But yeah, so they haven't announced any kind of horsepower, fuel efficiency numbers. They'll all come with a 6-speed automatic transmission, and they're going to go on sale in early 2018. So you know, it's a 2018 model year car, but we're not going to see it here again for another year and a half. So, but cool to see those nonetheless. And Chevy also has the same idea. They also unveiled at the LA Auto Show here the 2017 Chevy Spark Activ, which now this is really, I mean, even less of a change than the EcoSport. This is just basically just a standard Chevy Spark that's been lifted up 0.4 inches for additional ground clearance there, and it has slightly more aggressive styling, and with the unpainted black plastic there, and a roof rack. That's about it. So it's gonna be $17,000 with the manual and $18,000 with the CVT. But because the changes are so slight, they're able to get this to market a lot sooner. So this is gonna be available quarter one of 2017. So basically like a full year before the Ford is available. So very smart there by Chevy, and yeah, we'll see if buyers are like those few changes enough to pay the additional couple $1,000 there for the active version of the Chevy Spark. An actual crossover that was unveiled this past week was the refreshed 2017 Mazda CX-5, which looks very good. Has a lot of CX-9 inspired stuff there in the nose. It makes it look a lot sharper, and makes it a little more modern looking here for the CX-5. Looks really, really good. You'll be able to get the same 2-liter and 2.5-liter Skyactiv engines, the 4-cylinder gasoline engines. But the big news here is that they're going to have the option for a new Skyactiv D 2.2-liter diesel that has 173 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, which is a very brave decision here with Dieselgate just being, in recent history. Yeah, so very cool to see that they're, offering that though. And, the improvements they've made, the inside of the, car as well as the back end as well. It all looks very nice overall, and is a really good little crossover, I think, there. Another really nice thing that came out this past week here at LA was the Volkswagen Passat GT, which they say they built because there was a lot of dealer and customer demand that they wanted to see something like this. And so basically it's a Passat that's been given the GTI treatment. As you can see with the front bumpers, the rear bumper, it has a quad exhaust that they say are louder than standard exhausts on the other Passat models. It uses the same VR6 280 horsepower engine that you get in a standard top-of-the-line Passat, but of course it's just a lot sportier there as far as suspension tuning, and on the inside there it's a lot sportier as well. And so a very cool idea, and actually I think that would sell pretty well if they were to make it, because the Passat, even in the sportier trim, still looks a little bland. I think this really spices it up and makes it look pretty awesome. So fingers crossed that actually gets produced. That would be pretty cool. And I usually don't talk about race cars, but this one is such a big deal and everyone's been freaking out about it all week that I figured it'd be important to discuss. And that is that Porsche at the LA Auto Show unveiled the 2017 Porsche 911 RSR, which is a non-street legal race car. But the big news about this one is it's mid-engine. So the engine is in front of the rear axle instead of behind it, like in typical rear engine fashion in 911s. So it uses a 4-liter flat-six engine. It's based on the 991 911's engine instead of the old Metzger engines that they've used for a while now. So because it's now mid-engine, it's been engineered to meet the LM GTE class requirements to go up against the other mid-engine cars, so like the Ford GT and the Ferrari 488 GTE. And it looks very impressive too. Very aggressive rear spoiler and rear diffuser and front spoiler there, and just looks really, really amazing. And depending on what class it's competing in and stuff, it can do as much as 510 horsepower. All goes to the rear wheels, and because of the regulations, it weighs in at exactly 2,740 pounds. So very lightweight. Should be an absolute monster. And the body, instead of being made out of steel in the previous versions, is now made completely out of carbon fiber, which is very impressive as well. And so yeah, who knows now? We've been hearing thoughts about how last week I actually talked about the modular platform that Porsche is considering building the next completely new generation 911 and share that same platform with the Cayman and Boxster, which would mean it would also have to accommodate a mid-engine layout in addition to a rear-engine layout. So there may be plans for the production 911 to actually go mid-engine eventually, or at least have some kind of option for that. Still very, very fuzzy and many years away. But, this could be a cool little clue as to what we may see in the future. So very cool to see that. Another very cool thing that Jaguar showed off at the LA Auto Show was the XKSS, the old one here. So what they did basically, this is about 60 years ago, they built a bunch of these. There were supposed to be 25 of these cars built in total, but unfortunately they only built 16 and the other 9 were destroyed in a fire that happened at the factory, and those 9 cars never got built. And so Jaguar, with their special operation operations team that they've been reassembling some of these other older cars, you know, D-types and things like that. They're going to be building they're going to be building these 9 XKSSs, and they showed one here at LA that's been finished. They're going to cost £1 million each, and before you even ask, they're already all sold out. You know, there was only 9 of them, and even with the exchange rates here of, you know, being like $1.25 million in the States, yes, they are all, of course, sold out. And so this green one is really cool because it harkens back to Steve McQueen's that he had. That was one of his favorite cars, his XKSS, that I showed even in my Peterson video whenever I did the tour of the Peterson, that's on display. And it's just a really cool thing. And, you know, they haven't really modernized it either. It's still basically the same old car. The body's made out of magnesium. And they said the only few little changes, you know, they did like a modern fuel cell in it because they didn't want to put any kind of old-fashioned fuel system in it and have it, you know, risk catching fire. But it still has the same old engine. It even has the triple Weber DC03 carburetors, and so only does 262 horsepower. But these things are very light and simple, so should still be a very, very fast and impressive car. And yeah, so all sold out, but very, very awesome to see that they, you know, are building those final 9. A company called Rezvani that's been making some of these little supercars. I guess it's an Irvine, California-based company. And so anyway, they just unveiled at LA the Beast Alpha Coupe, which is a $200,000, 500 horsepower hardtop version of the Beast Roadster that they already had out. And so this Beast Alpha Coupe here does 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. And it's really an impressive little thing. The really crazy thing, though, is those doors, which they're also pretty crazy looking. So those doors are called Sidewinder doors, and as you can see, they pop out and slide forward. So they're kind of like Koenigsegg doors, except the Koenigsegg doors flip up afterwards. These ones just stay, you know, in their horizontal orientation there, but still looks very cool. Yeah, these things only weigh 1,950 pounds. They have a top speed of 175. It all sounds very impressive. It's based on an aluminum chassis based on a Lotus Elise, I believe, and so it uses a 2.4 liter K24 4-cylinder from Acura as the engine that's been heavily revised and stuff to beef it up so that it does 500 horsepower thanks to a turbocharger. But a K24 turbocharged 500 horsepower in a tiny little lightweight thing sounds mind-blowing, but it's actually not super crude like a Hennessy Venom or something like that, because they said that you know, there's leather and Alcantara everywhere. It has an instrument cluster that's an LCD screen. The dash has a stereo with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, has air conditioning, airbags, it has drive mode selectors and stability and traction control, all that kind of stuff. It even has an economy mode. So, you know, I mean, it's still a pretty bare bones interior there, but has all the essentials, and I think is actually a fairly livable kind of vehicle. And so yeah, it's pretty cool to see that they've unveiled that. Now, we know the Cadillac has killed off the ELR little Volt-based coupe, but they've just introduced a new plug-in hybrid here. It's actually just the 2017 Cadillac CT6 plug-in hybrid. We knew there was a plug-in hybrid version coming, but now we have all the details on it. It has a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, in addition to having a pair of electric motors and a big battery. And so because of all those things, it has a rating of 65 mpge. It can go 30 miles on a full electric charge and 400 miles combined with the engine working along. And so the total output here for the powertrain is 335 horsepower and 432 pound-feet of torque, which is right up there with the same naturally aspirated 3.6 liter V6 in the CT6. It actually has more torque than even the twin-turbo 3-liter V6. So very exciting. 0 to 60, they're saying, for the plug-in hybrid here is 5.2 seconds, top speed 150. It's going to be coming this spring, and it costs $76,000, which is a good amount more. I'd say it's like $8,000 more than the standard V6 version here, and should be pretty nice though. I mean, it's definitely a lot more expensive, but you know, that's the price you pay for the electrification. That's just one of the things that comes with it. Speaking of electric cars though, Tesla just on the low unveiled a new software update that's going to be coming out next month for the P100D with ludicrous modes. Those cars are going to be getting 0.1 second faster 0 to 60 just because of a software update. So they will now do 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds, which is just mind-blowing, and it'll do the quarter quarter mile now in 10.6 here for the Model S. I think the Model X versions are like 0.1 seconds slower, but they also get that same improvement. So very awesome to see that. Back to Nissan, they, just speaking of light speed basically, they announced the Rogue One Star Wars edition of the Nissan Rogue. And so obviously a natural fit there to do a collaboration between those two with the new movie coming out. And so the SUV, I should say, is only available in either black or white. Of course, all the trim is blacked out and stuff to give it, you know, an appropriate Star Wars look. And of course, it has plenty of special badges and little touches here and there all over the exterior and the interior in order to, you know, differentiate it and make it worth the additional $2,000 premium over a standard, you know, version of the Rogue. And you can get it with either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. It's based on the standard SV trim, and you know, so it has the same, some of the popular packages you would usually get on those. So 5,000 of these are coming to the United States, 400 for Canada, and yes, so if you're obsessed with Star Wars, I think that is the crossover for you. McLaren this past week officially unveiled a teaser image and a little bit of information here about their three-seat successor to the McLaren F1. So what we're seeing here is called the BP23, and they say it's the spiritual successor to the F1. They're going to only make 106 of these, which is the same number as the F1. They're all already sold out, of course, and yes, they'll actually have a three-seat configuration with the middle seat being the driver's seat. And so BP23 is short for Bespoke Project 23, and so they're calling it a Hyper GT because they're saying that it's designed for long distance travel. Like anyone's going to drive these things with them being that limited. Aside from Jay Leno and maybe a few other brave souls, I'm sure they'll all be locked up in warehouses and stuff. So it's going to be a hybrid kind of system. It's going to probably be more than 904 horsepower of the, you know, P1 to, you know, be the new top dog. And they said every single piece of switchgear will be unique to the BP23. So no carryover McLaren stuff. Everything is going to be totally unique. And they're saying these are going to be well in the seven-figure realm. So, you know, they're probably going to be competing with Pagani Huayras and things like that, I'm assuming. And so, yes, they also are saying that, you know, the doors will be standard like to how they are in all the other McLarens, how they go up. But they'll be different on this in that the doors will be power operated and they're going to extend into the roof, kind of like the Ford GT. 40 kind of style, and so very, very impressive there, and can't wait to hear more about when they'll be coming out and, you know, actually what it's going to look like aside from this one little drawing. So very exciting to see that. And the last few stories this week finally are all stories from Audi. Very quickly here, the 2018 Audi A5 and S5 has been announced are coming to the United States, which is you know, a very exciting thing and adds even more models here to the Audi line. So the A5 is going to only come to the States. The only engine we're getting here in the States is the 252 horsepower 4-cylinder turbo, and then the S5 is just going to get, you know, its standard 354 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque there for the S5. Now, speaking of A5s though, the standard regular coupe version of the A5, they just announced it's going to be available with a manual. The S5 won't be, but, you know, because since the A4 is going to have a manual as an option now with that, you know, 252 horsepower 2-liter 4-cylinder, and it's basically the same thing in the A5, they are able to port that over. So in the States here, we're going to have an option for a manual for both the A4 and the A5. Well done, Audi. Great to see that. And the last Audi thing is that Audi has announced this past week that they want to add 8 new RS models. Now, I'm not sure how many of those we're going to get in the States here because we don't already get all the RS models that Europe gets. They get a lot more of the cooler ones than we do. And they didn't say what models are going to be getting the RS treatment, but we know there probably is going to be a new Audi RS4, probably some kind of RS Q5, and probably an RS version of the Audi R8 as well at some point to kind of go along with the Huracan Superleggera and kind of be similar to that, I would assume. And so hopefully we'll actually maybe get some of those new models of the RS over here in the States, in addition to some of the RS models we don't currently get, like the RS6 Avant and stuff like that would be cool to get as well. But yeah, so great to hear that. Anyway, that's it for all the news this week, guys. So thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next week. Take care.